I am my thoughts. If they exist in her, Buffy contains everything that is me, and she becomes me. I cease to exist.
Google had a tremendous keynote at its annual I/O conference. What the company is doing with augmented reality and maps and continued conversation, multiple actions, and WaveNet in Google Assistant is totally next generation stuff. It's the kind of stuff that should keep Apple executives up at night figuring out what they need to change about their priorities and people in order to not only catch up, but not be left behind when this becomes the most important platform in history. We need them to. You and I need them to. And if you want to know why, just look at Google DUPLEX.
How can I help you? Hi, I'm calling to book a women's haircut for a client. I'm looking for something on May 3rd. Sure, give me 1 second.
It was the main event, the showstopper, no doubt about it, a neural network assistant able to interact with and pass for human.
10 a.m. is fine. Okay, what's her first name? The first name is Lisa. Okay, perfect. So I will see Lisa at 10 o'clock on May 3rd.
It was, from a purely technological point of view, amazing, but it was also profoundly concerning. Google mentioned the term AI over and over again. Not since Web 2.0 and to the cloud have buzzwords been so buzzed. They mentioned AI so often, it's almost like they were afraid we'd forget that they were using it. What they didn't mention, though, was Google's responsibility in the face of all this AI. And what they absolutely didn't mention was privacy. In a time when Facebook is being hauled in front of Congress and users of online services everywhere are finally waking up and wondering just how their data is being used and potentially abused, not addressing corporate responsibility and privacy isn't just absurd, it's borderline negligent. If Google is going to show off such deep knowledge of us and our contacts that it can draft emails for us, make phone calls for us, in other words, act as us, it has to actively, emphatically, repeatedly tell us it's respecting our privacy while doing it. Privacy and responsibility should be repeated in each and every segment as much as AI, more. Not just for our benefit, but for Google's benefit. Not just to assuage us, but to remind itself. Because right now, the way Google is acting is terrifying. Just take a look at the Google AI blog. The Google DUPLEX technology is built to sound natural, to make the conversation experience comfortable. It's important to us that users and businesses have a good experience with this service, and transparency is a key part of that. We want to be clear about the intent of the call so that businesses understand the context. We'll be experimenting with the right approach over the coming months. No, sorry, you have to nail down the privacy first. You have to come to terms with the ethics first. Then you have to build in a way that respects the privacy and holds to the ethics. There's no way to retrofit that stuff later. Contrast this to how Apple developed the AI-powered Face ID feature. Apple has a privacy team. That team is involved from the very beginning of the process. It identifies potential issues with regards to privacy, and it makes sure those issues are addressed as part of the development process. And if the privacy team can't make sure of that, the product does not ship until they can. That's how you take responsibility for your company and show respect to your end users. Look at the Google DUPLEX demo as well.
See how may I hear you?
Hi, I'd like to reserve a table for Wednesday the 7th.
For 7 people?
It's for 4 people.
Google Assistant never identifies itself as Google Assistant. Just the opposite. It does everything it can, including hemming and hawing, in order to pass for human. That's a huge ethical problem, and one Google doesn't even bother to acknowledge, much less start to address. I mean, what better time to begin the biggest conversation in the history of technology than during the biggest demo of the show? When better to stop being cocky about how often you can drop the term AI and what you're building and start showing some self-awareness and some humility over its potential repercussions for all of us. Now, I get that passing as human is better UX. It avoids all sorts of potential issues on the other end of the line, including having to explain what Google Assistant is and risking the human simply hanging up. But those are reasons, they're not excuses. There's a real person on the other end of that line, not just another API endpoint. Now, there are major benefits to this technology, absolutely. For people with voice accessibility needs, it will be transformative. But there are negatives as well. For example, people with social anxiety, something I've experienced, or isolation, it will enable new levels of avoidance and regression. Worse, we've already seen what Twitter and Facebook bots can do in terms of fomenting extremism, misinformation, and abuse. Technology like this is the gateway to those bots getting a voice. For now, Duplex is tightly constrained to very narrow domains, but that's a processing limit that won't last. And despite what Google said, it isn't really working on this technology just to bridge the digital divide to businesses that haven't yet rolled out an online reservation system. That's a transitional situation that won't last out the generation. This technology is going to be everything going forward. Google knows that, and Google needs to stop acting like it thinks we're too stupid to know that as well. Instead, Google needs to have a conversation with us. It needs to talk about its responsibility in all this. It needs to address privacy and ethics all the time, every time. It needs to address it again and again until Google's culture is steeped in it and we're all tired of hearing about it. And then it needs to do it again. And yes, again. Because right now the problem isn't artificial intelligence, it isn't technology. The problem is Google. And yes, Apple. Absent Google giving any indication it cares about any of this, Apple needs to get it together and fast. Like I talked about in the previous video, Siri OS will be the future, and if Apple doesn't take it seriously, doesn't make it a priority, and doesn't just catch up but start leading ethically, morally, if not initially technologically, we'll have no privacy and user-centric options. And that's bad for everyone. Meanwhile, on the opposite end of the business communication spectrum, like I mentioned in the last video, I have these new contacts. And thanks to Simple Contacts, I have a new, faster, easier, and less expensive way to order them and to reorder them. Instead of AI, there's an app. It gives you a test to make sure your current prescription is still 20/20, and then it lets you place your order. Now, this isn't a replacement for your periodic full eye health exam, but it is a way to get your current script refilled anytime, anywhere. And because Simple Contacts is sponsoring the show, you can get $30 off your first order by going to simplecontacts.com/vector and entering the promo code VECTOR at checkout. Thanks, Simple Contacts. There's this spin on this old joke about when the last human is killed by the machines and she goes to heaven and God meets her at the pearly gates and she says, "How could you let this happen?" And God says, "What are you talking about? I sent you the Terminator. I sent you the Matrix. Those were warnings. What the hell are you doing here?"
I'm here to help. Stop.
Now, I don't think this is the rise of the machines. I certainly don't think this is Judgment Day, but I do think it's important that we talk about these issues and this technology now. So I'd love to hear what you think. Is Duplex amazing? Is it terrifying? Is it both? Where do you see it all going? And how do you see us getting there? Let me know in the comments below. And meanwhile, please hit the like button, please hit subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.
In terms of AI, I don't see it happening in the way people fear it. I think AI will just take over all things that we need done. But you're not going to have one AI that does everything. Is that the priority?
No, we need many so they can argue amongst themselves.
Let them talk among themselves while you go out and go to the Bahamas.